Hello, and welcome back to the Poodle Booked It and the River Cruise Masterclass. I am so glad you are here. I will tell you, I am hopped up on caffeine and honestly, rosé. I went to a networking event today and I had so much fun. I met a lady from one of the Chamber of Commerce in my local area, and I am so excited about what she is doing there. Anyways, I digress. Today we are talking about the Rhine, right? We have been on our mini series about it and we are almost done. So we are talking about the Southern Rhine today. Last week, we did take a little bit of a hiatus, not really, where we had my mom on the podcast and we talked about her thoughts and opinions on the Rhine River and what she liked and didn't like about her first river cruise. Spoiler alert, she had a great time and we are going on 2 more this year. But when we're talking about the Southern Rhine, we're basically going from Middle Rhine, so Rudesheim, as we talked about, all the way to Basel, Basel, however it is pronounced. And then we'll be doing our last podcast of this Rhine series, where we'll be going into how I would spend 3 days in Basel, Zurich, Switzerland. And you might be surprised on what my answers are. But this episode is all about us continuing up the river or down the river. And so as we make the transition from Rudesheim and the Rhine Gorge down to Basel, the landscape actually really changes. So the dramatic cliffs and the vineyards really are going to change to alpine foothills, and we're going to start looking for the Swiss Alps. So what we're going to be doing is the cultural fusion. So the strong French and German influence of the Alsace area is going to be transitioning to the clean, art-focused urbanism of Basel. And when you go to this region, you are often going to have a lot more immersive food and wine excursions because of all of the different things that you can do there and just the different types of things. I mean, obviously, you can't forget about the German chocolate cake. You will go to the Black Forest and try that. So just heads up, be prepared for those calories. I did it. I even helped create it. There's a video. I'll post it onto my Facebook group that I hope you guys are all a part of. Okay. So one of the cities that you can go to when you're talking about the Rhine is Spire. It's Romanesque with its roots and religious history. You have the cathedral in town, which on the Rhine, which I have a client who's on the Rhine River right now who's very religious. And one of the reasons I sent her on the Rhine is because of just the beautiful castles. Like I thought of her when I thought of the Cologne Cathedral, which we've talked about. But the Spire Cathedral was very beautiful as well. It was huge. It was gorgeous. It has some really interesting facts on it. For example, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it is one of the largest Romanesque churches in the world. It has a Jewish courtyard and a mikveh, which is a ritual bath, which is a testament to medieval Jewish life in Germany. So one of the things they also have, as we talked about, is a Technic museum in Spire, which is a giant hangar housing aircrafts, vintage cars, and even a submarine if you have kids or want to do something different. And Spire was one of the first cities in the Holy Roman Empire to be granted town rights. So basically that means it's one of the first towns ever officially becoming a town, which I think is pretty cool. If you go there, as we've talked about, when it comes to we're going into a foodie area, you should try a samugin, which is a stuffed pork dish with a local Riesling, which obviously you should have in this region because it is the Riesling region. So some of the cruise ships that are going to stop in Spire is going to be Viking, Uniworld, Avalon, Amadeus. And if you do that, some of the excursions I recommend, for example, Avalon has a guided cathedral and Jewish quarter walk. I definitely would recommend that. And if you have families, Uniworld has a family excursion for the Rhine, and they go to the Technic Museum so you can see that submarine, which I'm not going to lie, sounds really cool. So, Strasbourg is one of those cities on the Rhine that you hear a lot about. It has a Franco German fairy tale city sort of feel to it. It's basically like they call it the Le Petit France because of its quaint districts with the canals and the timbered houses and flower boxes. The Strasbourg Cathedral features a giant astronomical clock with a Gothic tower climb. And so you can climb up to the top and see the rest of the city. I didn't do it, but I definitely think that would be something I definitely would try. And it is both, the city is actually both German and French. It has been annexed multiple times through history, which is why you see such a unique feel of both countries in it. And it has, of course, because of that, been a battlefield a lot. Now, when you were there for foods and to try, I think you should try a tarte flambée or a bekivaff. And you also are going to want to try the Alistane white wines, like a Pinot Blanc. Now, I liked the wines of this region because I like a sweeter wine. Now, when my mom went, we did go wine tasting and she was not a fan just because she is not a sweet wine person. So it's going to be more on the sweet end is what these wines are. Like as you like the main wine of this region is a Riesling, so that should kind of give you a heads up of what kind of wine you're going to experience on this trip. So some of the people who stop in Strasbourg is honestly all of them. Alma Waterways, Viking, Scenic, Tauk. If you are on Alma Waterways, I definitely recommend the canal boat tour with the cathedral visit, or with Tauk, possibly doing the culinary walking tour with the regional tastings. I'm all about learning about a place with food just because I feel like you get to feel the heart of an area by what kind of food is local. Every time I go somewhere new, I'm always asking, what the locals are eating, what's unique to the region, and how I can just experience things that way. When I was in Budapest, I did a cooking class, and it was so much fun. So if you have time to take a cooking class in some of these places, I think it's a really unique way of doing things. So another stop that you can kind of do in this area is the Brishak, which is going to be the Black Forest Gateway. Now, this is one of those times where you will have to do bus, just like you will if you want to go to Heidelberg. But anyways, when you do the Black Forest, you go to the Breschke Münster, which is a hilltop cathedral overlooking some vineyards and the river. It is the excursion hub for the Black Forest. The Black Forest was really an interesting stop because you actually can watch them make a cuckoo clock, and you get to do like schnapps tastings, a glass blowing demonstration. So when I was there, we also did a Black Forest cake demonstration and learned like how they make it, how it was invented, what the history to that cake was. And so also like the Black Forest traditions inspired the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. So those are one of those things that are interesting to do. On Viking, we did a tour of the Black Forest area, and then we got to do the cuckoo clock workshop and demonstration, and they even had a hike into the Black Forest. And that was really interesting. And another city that was something that I really enjoyed was the city of Colmar. So when you're on the Rhine River, as I've talked about before, you are going from each side of the river to each side of the river because the river is actually the difference between France and Germany. So one day we would be in France and they'd be like, it's all Germany's fault. The next day we'd be in Germany and they'd be like, it's all France's fault. So in Colmar, you are in this beautiful little town that actually inspired the Beauty and the Beast. There's a cute little walkway that you can go through, and they're like, this inspired the scene from Beauty and the Beast. And it has the canals, it has the cobblestones, it has a very preserved Renaissance architecture. We had an amazing Irish coffee there that was to die for. One of the things that you might want to try when you're there is a Kugelhof, which is a yeast cake, or like you can also do a Munster cheese. And as I said, Colmar inspired the village for Disney's Beauty and the Beast. We went there, and then also Colmar is where the birthplace of the person who carved the Statue of Liberty. And you can go to his house. They have a miniature version of the Statue of Liberty. They are very proud of their heritage and the fact that he was from the city of Colmar. So if that's something you didn't know, it's one of those really interesting things where you can see the Statue of Liberty there. And that's why it's there, because that is where the artist who designed the Statue of Liberty is from. So I definitely recommend doing a city tour of Colmar and learning about those sort of things. Another area that you have is Heidelberg. So Heidelberg is going to be your romanticism. It's a castle. It's about an hour from the Rhine, but it's definitely worth the adventure if you're going to do it. So it has the sandstone ruins, the panoramic views. It has the world's largest wine barrel, which is something my mother would have loved. Not my mother, my father would have loved. You can do the Philosopher's Walk, which is a scenic trail with views of Old Town, the Nectar River, the Old Bridge, and the historic Old Town area. Is going to have the lively streets, the Baroque architecture. The Heidelberg University was founded in 1386 and is the oldest in Germany. Now, some of the things you might want to try when you're there is a Schneeballballen, which is a deep-fried dough ball pastry, not to be confused with a Bitterballen, which is what we talked about in Amsterdam. And so if you're going to do it, I definitely recommend doing a guided tour of Heidelberg and a walk through the Old Town. Or if you're on Tauk, doing that riverfront lunch with a visit to the Heidelberg University Library, because it is world famous. Now, we're going to kind of go into the final major port of the Rhine, which is going to be Basel. Basel is the only Switzerland port, because this is basically as far as it goes. But it is a beautiful city to have a couple of nights in. You're going to be able to do your fondue, your lakrili, which is a spiced cookie. You're going to have your Swiss chocolate. And all the cruise lines are going to start or end here. It has a beautiful little old town. And I'm going to tell you, Switzerland is a very expensive country. And so I'm going to kind of give you some hints on how to do things in our next episode, which is why I wanted to keep this one short as we're talking about this part of the Rhine. The Rhine area is just so unique and so fun to explore. It has so much history. Which is why I kind of wanted to highlight to you 3 interesting history lessons about the Southern Rhine region that you might not know about, that you will learn on your trip when you go on a Rhine River cruise, and is something that I learned along the way. So the first one is the Spire protest. So in 1529, during the imperial diet in Spire, German princes and city leaders lodged a formal protest against the Catholic Church in efforts to suppress the Reformation. This moment gave rise to the term Protestant, which is actually still used today. This act of defiance played a major role in shaping religious freedom across Europe, and all began in the cathedral-shadowed streets of Spire. So this is perfect for those religious history or those that are interested in the power of civil resistance and how that worked. Another one that you might not know about is, as we talked about, Strasbourg's shifting borders. So Strasbourg has changed hands at least 4 times between France and Germany in 75 years. So from 1870 to 1945. Rather than becoming a flashpoint, it was originally chosen as the symbolic seat of the European Parliament, a place where former enemies now debate and negotiate and work together. Today, you can walk from a medieval wine tavern to the European Parliament buildings and kind of understand the juxtaposition of old and new, and how Strasbourg is a living case study of European reconciliation. And the last one, just as your 3 historical facts for this podcast, is the Heidelberg Tun and the spirit of the Palatinate. So, as we talked about, you have the Great Barrel, right? So, deep in the cellar of the Heidelberg Castle lies the Grobfass, which was the Great Barrel built in 1751 and is one of the largest wine barrels in the world, capable of holding over 58,000 gallons of wine. But here's the twist: it is rarely full. The giant cask was more symbolic of the prince elector's power and wealth versus the ability to have that much wine. In addition, like the court jester named Paracchio was in charge of guarding the barrel and reportedly drank up to 18 bottles of wine a day. When he finally drank water, legend says he died. I love that. I'm gonna uh, those are just, I always find history interesting. The likely chance of that happening, is not true, but I love the history and the legends and things of that nature. Our next episode is going to be on if I only had 3 days, how would I spend them in Zurich? And then some helpful hints as well as if you wanted to spend more time. So the first part of the episode is going to be 3 days, and then the second part is going to be 7 to 10 because Switzerland does deserve that amount of time when you're talking about it. It is a gorgeous country, and so I can't wait to highlight it. But I wanted to say thank you for listening to my podcast. I have received some comments of people enjoying it and learning something about what this, trip looks like, how you can benefit from it, and it makes me so happy. And I'm already working on my next mini series, which I'm going to be doing some deep dive comparisons of some of the cruise lines. And so I can't wait to kind of do that with you. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email. My email is sydney@thepoodlebookedit.com. And I cannot wait to help you plan your next vacation, river cruise or not. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you.